Hey everyone, and welcome to my early impressions of Starfield. Now, many of you have already probably gotten into the game and played it. However, because I've been on vacation, I only came back yesterday. I've been playing Starfield to make my sort of first impressions, and these are going to be everything that includes the good, the bad, just everything that I liked and disliked about the game. I'm about 15 hours into it, so let's get right into it.
Lockhart QT.
So, starting off with the good. I'd really like to give credit to the voice acting and general performances. Yes, the characters do have that trademark Bethesda, I guess like deadpan looks where all the characters don't really show as much emotion as you'd probably see from titles like Horizon Forbidden West and God of War with the NPCs, but it kind of has that charm. It's very nostalgic to me when you look at a character, they're talking to you and it's very deadpan, but in my opinion this is the best Bethesda game in terms of both voice acting, general performances and actual motion capture, so it's just really good. I mean, one of my favourite characters is one that you meet right at the beginning, which is Sarah. I love her voice actress as well as her looks, the little, I guess, like flexing sort of her face and expressing emotion. It's really cool. Speaking of which, immersion is a big thing in this game for me, and straight away getting into the game when you actually get to New Atlantis and some of the other cities and settlements, you are immersed right in there right from the beginning, because the HUD is very minimal and you go in and you just see everything and you're fully immersed into this world and the lore and everything, and it's just brilliant. Now, one thing, so if you guys don't know, if you haven't watched any of our streams where I've said it, I'm a big fan of Bethesda RPGs, so I'm a big fan of both Fallout and Elder Scrolls, with my personal favourite one being Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4. So for me, the biggest takeaway from those games is the combat. I really don't like FPS Bethesda combat, it's just not for me. However, in this game, I'd say that, you know, they've really learned a lot from Fallout 76, Fallout 4 and etc, because this is, in my opinion, the best combat out of any Bethesda game in terms of FPS shooting. So obviously melee combat is a whole different kettle of fish, but in terms of the actual gunplay, this is the best Bethesda game in my opinion. So what I mean by that is, obviously Bethesda aren't known for their shooting, then it's not like Bungie or Activision, they're not known for their tight gunplay and gun controls. However, this, in my opinion, is the best gunplay we've seen in a Bethesda game to date. Another positive here is the freedom of exploration, so I'll get onto some of the issues I have with this in a minute in the bad section, but for me, just being able to explore any planet and going off the beaten trail like you can in Fallout, where you essentially, you know, you come out of the vault and then you essentially have the entire world open to you. It's great. It's a great feeling. You can literally just go around the cities and explore. You can talk to all the NPCs. I mean, obviously at the beginning of the game you can't really do a whole lot, but you know, it's there, and it really just fit into the immersion. So going back onto the exploration though, I really liked New Atlantis in terms of visuals, as well as the, I forget what it's called, but it's the Western-esque planet where you go to, you stop the bank robbers. It's very early on. Like I said, I've only done about 14 hours into the game, so not too much, but the exploration and again the immersion's just great. And the last positive for me early on in the game is the character customization. I think this is the best Bethesda game for character customization. I've seen some wild things. I've seen people do Kanye West, I've seen people do Mr. Beast, and I've seen other ones. You can literally, if you spend the time and effort into doing it, you can literally customize your character however you want, and you can actually make yourself, which I think is a really important thing that games nowadays, where they just give you presets. I mean, if you guys do want presets, they are here. If you want to, if you're like me and you're not really too bothered and you just want to go into and do it. I did customize my own character, but I'm not really too bothered about that type of thing. I'm not really, you know, it's not, you know, something that I'm sitting there spending hours on. I'm the type of person that usually will select a preset or spend 5 or 10 minutes just creating a character. I'm not gonna, you know, spend hours perfectly replicating myself in the game. I'm hoping one day that, you know, games get to a certain point where you can literally just like take a picture of yourself and it will like create you like perfectly from a photo in the game, and then you have a character that looks exactly like you. I think that would be a cool thing, but it's probably years off from happening. But overall, I thought the character customization as well as the backgrounds and the traits you can give yourself are really cool. Now going into the bad. First off, performance. I was really hoping this wouldn't be in the bad section. So overall, I do think the visuals are nice, and if you go up close with certain gun models and different things, the actual models themselves look brilliant. However, in terms of performance, I played this on Xbox Series X, so if you're playing on PC, obviously you might have a different story. However, it's locked at 30 FPS, which is already not great. However, when exploring planets, opening doors, in the middle of combat and various other situations, I experienced FPS drops all the way down to like 10, loads of jittering, especially when the weather effects come in, things like sandstorms and wind that cause the game to really jitter. I had loads of pop-in terms of like grass, rocks, textures, things like that, and I actually had the game crash on 2 occasions, one being when I tried to load a save, and the other one from when I was actually entering a new building. The game just fully crashed. And obviously this is after a day 1 patch, so we might get a patch that fixes this like next week, but as of now, as of writing this, I did experience loads of crashing. I also experienced characters disappearing, just like fully just not there, just like fully disappearing, as well as one side quest that I tried to complete where the objective actually fully like despawned and disappeared. It was invisible, I wasn't able to pick it up, which forced me to force crash the game, turn off my console, turn it back on, and then it was then working. However, performance isn't even the biggest thing for me in this game, like the biggest issue really, it's the mini-map. Oh my goodness gracious. So I've played a lot of games that don't really have a mini-map. They'll have like a compass. It's either usually a 360 compass like it is in Starfield, or it will be a horizontal one along the top of the middle of the screen. However, in Starfield there is no general mini-map. You have a galaxy map of the Starfield itself where you can select planets and places you want to fast travel to, but in terms of the individual planets, early on in the game at least, I don't know if something is unlocked, there are no individual maps, so you don't know where you're going, and things like vendors, important NPCs aren't marked on the map. You have to memorize them. So if people say they put in 60 hours into Starfield and then don't play the game for 6 months and forget where everything is, you're then going to struggle. And being a new player coming into this as well, it's not good, because it really, so as much as I do like the exploration, I like having no HUD on for certain things, at the same time I think a mini map is crucial. Now I don't mind them implementing a compass where things like enemies and important landmarks are located on the compass, they'll pop in when you're close to them. However, a mini map of each planet would have been, in my opinion, detrimental. I think it would have elevated Starfield even higher, because I'm not the type of person that loves chasing dots, essentially, going, having everywhere fully mapped out for me, going from A to Z. I do expect some, parts of the game where you want to, they want you to figure it out for yourself. They want you to actually travel there and do it for yourself. However, the problem for me is that I don't know where the hell I'm going half the time if it's not marked as a quest, and that's a big problem. Speaking of travelling around and exploration though, another huge thing that I really didn't like was the stamina feature. So in every Bethesda game you essentially have a stamina bar which is depleted by things like sprinting, using magic and Elder Scrolls, as well as things like melee attacks and general other things really. But for me, the two things here are the game there's not really any vehicles early on in the game, so it's lots of walking. So if your stamina bar depletes, you lose lots of health, meaning that you're wasting things like medipacks on refilling your health meter after your stamina meter has depleted, and obviously that requires you to do lots of walking. And in Bethesda games you also have a inventory capacity, like a maximum capacity, meaning that if you go over that number, your stamina bar will drain quicker, or it will even get to the point where you can't sprint, and that's a big problem. Now, I do get why this is, in terms of game design, I do get why this feature is actually implemented, but at the same time, I really, really hate it. Like, with a passion, hate it, because you'll pick up some cool loot, and then later on, you'll have to drop something else that you potentially need, or, if you don't have an ally with you, for example, you'll have to actually drop it on the floor, and then it will eventually despawn, meaning that you've lost that item or whatever it is, because you've had to swap it for an item that you've found whilst going into a dungeon or a settlement or whatever. And I really don't like that. I've hated this in most Bethesda games, but I feel like in Fallout 76, Fallout 4 and Starfield, it is even more egregious than it is in previous games. In previous games, they have clever ways of implementing it, whereas in Starfield, in my opinion, it's not implemented well. Now going on to the story. So overall, so far, I've found that the story has been a bit disjointed and a bit... the pacing's a bit off for me. So the game, obviously this is a no spoilers sort of first impression, but the main story it's similar to Mass Effect actually. You find a relic, you touch it, you have a vision, and then you're suddenly taken from your job and told you've got to join this organisation and help us find the other relics to find out what this vision was. Now for me it's a bit weird that our character's being plucked from the mining job we have, and we're basically just being told you've got to come with us. Like, no matter your choices you make in dialogue, you've got to come with us, which is really weird. But yeah, the game so far early on, it just sort of feels like MacGuffin chasing. Go here, do this artifact. Go here, do this other artifact. Go here, do this other artifact. And so far, I've got about 3 or 4 artifacts, I think, and it's getting a bit repetitive, because there aren't really too many personal stories being told. I mean, you can obviously talk to the characters and learn more about them and do it that way, but characters like Sam Coe, for example, I didn't really get much out of him because I haven't put my skill points into Persuade, so I wasn't able to persuade him into telling him, so for him to tell me more about his backstory, so I missed out on that. And it just feels a bit slow and a bit monotonous so far, but hopefully it will change later on in the game, because I have heard that apparently once you complete sort of the main bit where you get all the artifacts, apparently then the game completely changes and gets a lot better. And lastly, the UI and main menu interface. So the main menu for me is a bit, I don't know, it's just not great in terms of UI design. You've got it's like a circle where you've got your ship, your inventory, your skill points and all the rest of it. I like things like how the skill points are displayed with the little icons, the little patches. I quite like that. But in terms of the inventory, going in and out of them is a bit cumbersome and is not really well designed. So anyway guys, that's my first impressions of Starfield. I do apologise, it's been a bit of a unscripted, rambly video, but I wanted to get all my thoughts and feelings out there sort of in one video. I really apologise again for the fact that I haven't uploaded properly in a week, on Starfield, just because I was on vacation, so thank you for patience. I will also be covering Baldur's Gate 3 because everyone's been screaming at me to cover Baldur's Gate 3 at some point, which I will do. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and for more Starfield content, which there will be plenty more of on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.